You ready, girl? We're live. Right, Strongman fam, welcome back to another video on the MST Systems YouTube channel. Now, before I go any further with this video, it's that subscribe button underneath. Yeah, you little fuckers ain't clicking it. Click the subscribe button because I'm trying to build this channel up to be the #1 resource for strongman education. No bullshit strongman education. No bullshit strongman education. Proper strongman education. Not fucking drink your oblivion and eat your vegetables. I'm on about the real shit. The take your suspension and your draw and smash fucking log press kind of education. So hit the subscribe button. And also, for those of you that go to any strongman comps, me and Mrs. Dragon are going to be at the Static Monsters next, is it next weekend? I don't know when this video is going out. October the 23rd, we're going to be there. We're going to be filming the Static Monsters, max axle deadlift and max log press. We're going to get footage of the full day, and we're going to basically, you know, just cover the event the day, interview some athletes, and just showcase the event to you guys on the tubes. So, getting into today's video, what we're going to talk about is I'm going to talk about a subject that I think people misunderstand and apply wrongly all the time, and hopefully explaining it to you guys is going to help you implement it into your training, or if you're a coach, implement it better into your athlete's training to get better results. So it is about pauses on the deadlift. Yeah. She's having a little stretch. She likes being in these videos, guys, and otherwise she just walks around distracting me otherwise, like this fucking fat lad behind me. Anyhow, pauses on the deadlift. So we have options when we're pausing on the deadlift. We can either pause on the concentric, or we can pause on the eccentric. Well, actually, I'll tell you what, I'm going to start from scratch. So technically what we're doing is we're doing an isometric contraction. So when someone programs pause deadlifts, they're pausing an isometric contraction. Now, a true isometric is where you lifting concentrically into a immovable object. So you're basically at a specific joint angle and you're trying to move, but the object is immovable. So it will take roughly 3 to 5, sometimes 6 seconds in studies for someone to reach maximal peak contraction with an isometric. So how do you set that up on a deadlift? Well, you need to be in a power rack that's bolted to the floor, and you'd maybe set it up so that at roughly below the knee, the barbell will hit the safety pins of the rack, and then you would pull as hard as you could until you hit isometric failure, which is basically where you feel that force production drop. Then you would put it down, that'll be your rep finish. Now, the reason why I don't like programming that, and the reason why a lot of coaches don't, is because it's a bit of a ball ache to set up. And also, I found anecdotally that pairing it with concentric and eccentric work is best for the result. So to get the best result out of a true isometric, you would basically need to either do a couple of reps, then get the pins put through by your training partners and do an isometric on the last rep of a set of 5, say, or you would do it at the start and then get your training partners to remove the pins and do a couple of reps after the isometric. Basically, it's a bit of a farce and a bit of hassle, but a true isometric is that. It is contracted into an immovable object. So what people have done over the years is they've changed the isometric to basically pausing at a specific joint angle. And it first came in, most people would pause on the concentric, and then if I do take credit for this myself, I really pushed the pausing on the eccentric. I've pushed that out there for years now, and I do believe that I was one of the first people to get people to do that. I have seen other people obviously explain, I'm not trying to say I invented that shit, but I'm one of the main people that pushed that out there kind of into the strongman and powerlifting scene in the UK. And I want to discuss both contraction types and how you can get the best benefit from them. So for you to actually get an isometric adaptation at a joint angle, you need to do the contraction to the point of isometric failure, which is kind of like I explained when you're lifting into that immovable object, that point in which the force production drops. So that means that we have to pause a lot longer than what most people do. Because if you don't pause that long, you're just making the concentric or eccentric slightly harder rather than drilling in and gaining a specific isometric adaptation. So when we're pausing on the eccentric, this is the reason why I push this, is because say you're lowering the barbell down, you get below the knee and you hold there. You can hold there until complete isometric failure, until the barbell starts to slowly drop, and then you can take it to the floor. Now, if you paused on the concentric and you went to isometric failure, to where your force production starts to drop, you wouldn't be able to finish the concentric rep. So therefore, the concentric pause deadlift and the eccentric pause deadlift do two completely different things entirely. And you need to understand that so that you can apply the correct one to your training. So first off, I'm going to go into a bit of detail on the concentric pause and how you would best use it. When you pause the deadlift on the concentric, say it leaves the floor a couple of inches and you pause for a few seconds and then you finish that lift. Because you haven't given the body or brain enough chance to gain the feedback at that pause point, you will not elicit an isometric adaptation at that joint angle. You will gain benefits though, but they're going to come in the form of skill acquisition and positional reinforcement. So when you're applying the concentric pause deadlift into your training, you need to remember that. You need to remember that you're going to be gaining skill and positional resilience and reinforcement at that position, but you're not actually strengthening that specific position with an isometric adaptation. Now, when we take that reversed onto the eccentric, it is a completely different thing because we're kind of removing that skill element, but massively ramping the isometric adaptation we're able to get. Now, the eccentric portion of the lift is a lot stronger than the concentric, and we don't have to worry about creating force concentrically after the pause, which means that we can take it to isometric failure, or to the point in which, I like to imagine you're playing a game, all right? And when you get to a certain point in this game, you have to stand in a certain spot for a certain period of time, and a little bar goes up. And eventually, when it goes to the top, you get like a red light, and you've achieved the result. Think about that when you're doing your eccentric pauses. When you get to that pause point, you're waiting for this bar to fill, and then once it hits the top level, ding, you've achieved the isometric adaptation, mate. Put it down, then you can do your next rep and keep doing it. Now, the eccentric is 100% the best place to do the pause if you are wanting to gain the isometric adaptation. So, next thing to go into, what the hell is an isometric adaptation? Well, it's a structural change at a specific joint angle on a movement, and the adaptation isn't just stuck at that joint angle that you're pausing at. It actually goes slightly above and slightly below that joint angle. I believe it's like 20 to 30 degrees off the top of my head that studies show that below and above the joint angle that you will achieve, basically increased strength in that position. So if you're pausing, say, below the knee, you're not just getting the benefit at that point, you're getting it a little bit lower down and a little bit higher up as well. So they're very, very, very beneficial. What else is there to discuss? Oh, interesting fact, because nobody seems to know this, I had a coach's questionnaire asking what is the difference between an isometric contraction and pausing the deadlift on a concentric or eccentric, and a lot of people said it's the same thing. Well, an isometric contraction, like I explained at the start, is a position that is immovable, so a joint angle that you're unable to move through. So if you are pausing the deadlift on the concentric or the eccentric, obviously there is some slight movement there. Nobody ever stays perfectly still, and if you are getting to the point of isometric failure, what happens is that barbell starts to go down ever so slightly. So if you put it under a microscope, there's some micro movement there, which means that it's known as a quasi-isometric or a yielding isometric. It also can be called contraction. So there's slightly different things, but in my opinion and my experience, they do achieve the same result as a true isometric, which increases the strength at that specific joint angle. So that's pretty much everything, guys. Hopefully that explains to you the difference between pausing on the concentric and the eccentric, and what a true isometric is and a quasi-isometric, and how you can apply them to your training to get the benefit you want. So just to round it out, if you're looking to get skill, positional reinforcement and resilience, then you would want to pause on the concentric. If you're looking to gain a specific isometric adaptation, the easiest way to do this is by pausing on the eccentric, or you will have to apply a true isometric into your training, but you'll probably need some training partners and a slightly different setup and a bit of fucking willpower to get through the session. The reason why I don't like them, guys, is it's all right for one session. You think, oh, this is great, this is fun, but to get the true response, you're going to need to stay in an isometric phase for 3 to 6 weeks. You know, you've got to keep that up every single week, and it usually requires training partners' help and a bit of a dodgy setup. So I usually just recommend to pause on the eccentric. Anyhow, make sure you go to mstsystems.co.uk, check out MSTbot, check out our log ebook. If you're interested in getting into Strongman, download our free 8-week Strongman program. And like I said before, guys, we are going to be at Chaos Strength on October 23rd. come say hello to Mr. and Mrs. Dragon, and hopefully see you guys there and get some good footage of the day.